talking with my
walking, talking, walking,
Stayed
talking,
on
stayed on
Jesus.
Hallelujah,
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
hallelujah. I'm singing and shouting with my mind. Stayed on Jesus.
Singing and shouting with my mind.
Stayed on Jesus. I'm singing and shouting with my mind.
Stayed on Jesus. Hallelujah, I'll keep right on praising with my mind. Stayed on
I'll keep right on praising with my mind. Stayed on Jesus.
Hallelujah,
Great performance by Oklahoma Community College's choir under the direction of Mr. Kelvin Towers. We will now have the panelists' introductions. Of course, as always, already been stated that Mr. James Meredith, a Kosciuszko, Mississippi native, gained national attention at a key point in the civil rights movement in 1962, when he became the first African-American student admitted to the University of Mississippi. Initially, state officials refused a Supreme Court order to integrate the school, blocked Meredith's entrance to the institution, but following large campus riots that left 2 people dead, Meredith was admitted to the university under the protection of federal marshals. We also have Dr. Stephen Blake, who was a 1989 graduate of Oklahoma Agricultural High School. He also attended Oklahoma Junior College. He is a physician in Pennsylvania. He is also a philanthropist who gives back by supporting students at Oklahoma Agricultural High School, and he has a high school building named after him. And of course, last but not least, we have our esteemed president, Dr. Valmich Towner. Let me take you to a different time. First of all, about about 50 or so years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Jim Crow. It was the 1960s, and Jim told certain folks where they could and could not go. You see, all around the South, there was the job of Jim Crow. That may have seemed to be a big job of one person, telling folks where they could eat and drink. Jim had no problem keeping people who have skin like yours and mine in line. This story has been told many different ways. Many have forgotten how it was back in the days. Some say it could not have been worse. Our guest today was one of many who dared to be the first. And at this time, we will open up the conversation for our guests.
Good morning. Come on, talk back to me. Good morning. All right, so everybody relax. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the best community college this side of heaven, called Coahoma Community College, 70 years strong and running. This is a fabulous time. We welcome Coahoma Early College High School, which we emanated from that. Yes, give it up for the Tigers, Coahoma Early College High School, as well as I know we have here the Choctaws of West Tallahatchie High School. Are you here, the Choctaws? All right. We may have other high schools here. If we do, please let me know. I'm just so delighted to be here. This is an exciting time. And let me just go ahead and tell you, we have guests here, primarily Mr. Meredith. He has paid his dues. He can do whatever he wants to do, say whatever he wants to say, walk wherever he wants to walk. I did not know, Dr. Blake, that you graduated in 1989 from, I see why you're sweating, from Coahoma Aggie at the time, but we're so happy to have you as well. Dr. Blake is a gastroenterologist in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and we're so happy to have him. Y'all give him a hand. And we're just having a casual conversation that will perhaps be played again on our radio station. I'm happy to have here as well Dr. McKinley Charles Martin and his wife here. Stand, Dr. Martin and his wife. Don't they look good? He looks like a president, and she looks like a president's wife. Thank you so much. I think he went to school with our guest here, Mr. Meredith. We're also happy to have Mr. Meredith's wife here. She's lovely. Yes, I see why you married her, man. Y'all look like twins. All right. And we have board members here. I know we have at least 3 here. I want them to stand. Let us see some of our trustees. Are you here? Reverend Brown, Mr. McGlown, Ms. Butler, and the other board members. Okay, all right. Oh, Mr. Furge, thank you so much for coming. And we're just excited to be here. Again, this is a time in which we just wanted to be able to let students see and hear from an icon. Mr. Meredith does not, just as certain as he went to Ole Miss when no one else of color was going, he, quote, broke the rules. He doesn't live by rules now. So if he takes the mic from me and start talking, or if he walks away, y'all let him do whatever he wants to do because he's Mr. Meredith, all right?
And he ain't dead yet.
And he ain't dead yet, he said. So we're so happy to have him. Now, do we have a clip later on that we're going to show? Y'all are working on it. Okay. Again, we're happy to have Mr. Meredith here as well as Dr. Stephen Blake, who is really directly responsible for bringing Mr. Meredith here. So I want, yes, he's one of my heroes, fellow Alpha, great man, and so happy to have him to come when he would normally be at his practice in Philadelphia. Dr. Blake, why did you want to do this, man?
I don't think I have any.
There you go.
A mic. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Towner. First, I want to do a little correction. I'm not a graduate of Coahoma Community College. I'm a graduate of Coahoma Agricultural High School. And I graduated, affectionately called Aggie, in 1976. And I matriculated to the University of Mississippi in 76 and graduated from the University of Mississippi in 1980. And Mr. Meredith is a mentor of mine, a friend of mine, a confidant of mine. And in 2012, at the 50th anniversary for its inauguration of the University of Mississippi, I was driven by God to meet him. Didn't know why, but I was obedient. And I traveled to the University of Mississippi on 3 separate occasions to meet Dr. Meredith. And on 3 separate occasions, I was unsuccessful. And the chancellor of the university called me and said, "Steve, we'd like for you to come back to homecoming, and I'd like for you to be a guest in my box." And I told the chancellor, I said, "Unfortunately, I've been there 3 times already, and I don't think I'm going to be coming back a 4th time." The 3 times was over a course of about 4 weeks to meet Dr. Meredith. And so I thought about it. He called me back, and he said, "Steve, I really would like," he knew my mission was to meet Dr. Meredith. He called me back, and he said, "I really would like for you to come back for homecoming and be a guest in my box." And I said, "Well, you know, I haven't been a guest in your box before, so I think it might be worthwhile to come back, just to be a guest in your box for homecoming." Now, this was the year when Ole Miss had its first African-American homecoming queen. This was the year that Ole Miss had its second African-American student body president, and she just happened to be female. So this was historic at the 50th anniversary for the integration of the University of Mississippi. So I felt it would be worthwhile to go back, to be there just for them, since I hadn't met Dr. Meredith. So I get to the campus, I'm escorted to the chancellor's box, and the development officer who was escorting me pointed to this gentleman on the other side of the chancellor's box. He said, "Who do you think that is?" And I said, "I don't have a clue." So Dr. Meredith slightly turned toward me, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that's Dr. Meredith." Now, the chancellor knew he was going to be there, and those 3 unsuccessful attempts to meet him was worth going back to be a guest at the chancellor box. And I walked up to Dr. Meredith, and I'm in awe, not really knowing what to say. He looks at me and just stares for a brief period of time. He says, "It's a pleasure to meet you." And we've been friends ever since. That's how I met James Meredith. So now, just to cut it short, I left Ole Miss, became a medical technologist, traveled to Philadelphia to go to the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine, graduated there in '89, and completed my residency in '92 and my fellowship in gastroenterology in '94, and I've been in private practice since 1997, and Mississippi will always be home. Now, for the man that you came to hear, my mentor, my friend, my confidant, Dr. James Meredith.
Thank you, Dr. Blake. James Meredith was a badass dude. Now, that's in the rest of America. In Coahoma County, where Hernando de Soto in 1541, just below Crockdale, crossed the Mississippi River. In Coahoma County, they would refer back then to James Meredith as a badass nigger. Now, I deliberately did all I could to change the conversation, because everything I have noticed before is more than 50 years old. The problems black people face today are the present and the future. I drove down here. I don't know if Dr. Blake knew what he was telling me. He said, "Here's where white folks live, and here's where black folks live." I don't have any idea he knew what he was telling me. But now, I absolutely believe that Coahoma Junior College, maybe I should say everybody that spoke that was a student, was very impressive. I ain't judging the other folks, but when I heard the people singing, I say, except for the old choirs that they used to send around the world to raise money for the black schools, that was as good as I've ever seen. Was that? So I'm not just saying that I knew Coahoma was the place that could turn Mississippi around. I knew it before I came here, but after coming here and listening to that beautiful voice and those voices, I knew I was in the right place. I wasn't hardly sure that I was going to make the point of what the problem is today, but I'm going to at least introduce the subject. We've been talking about the legacy of slavery and the consequences of segregation all my life, and I'm real old. But the black people have never done anything to deal with that reality. And I'm just going to tell you a minute about what happened in the Yazoo, Mississippi Delta. Over 80% of every acre of land at one time was owned by black people. They lost all but about 3% of it. And they didn't even tell their children. They were so humiliated and embarrassed. And God told me, James Meredith, you've been lying and telling everything but the truth. And you know way you can go there to Coahoma Junior College, which is the most insulated place that blacks have in America, not just in Mississippi. And we have to deal with the consequences of segregation. Just a little bit about what happened. When the Civil War was over, all of this Mississippi Delta between the Yazoo River and the Mississippi River was in trees so big you couldn't hardly cut them. And it was all swamp, 90% swamp. They had to build canals to drain the water. They had to cut the trees first. The railroad got the land. They had to sell the land to pay for the railroad. And they got the land. The federal government gave them the land. They was to sell it, and they sold it to black people, and they cut all them trees, built all them canals, and then the white passed what they call an adverse possession law. They had already took the vote away from the blacks, and we were so embarrassed we don't even tell our children about it. Still lying, pretending like we've been had everything all the time. Ooh, God knows. I was looking around for trees in here. I don't see no trees in here. 'Cause I know some of these people gonna want to hang me when I get out of here. I mean, and I ain't talking about the white folks. And this adverse possession law, they'd already taken the vote away, which meant we didn't have standing in the court. So after we cleared all this land, the Mississippi legislature passed this law called the adverse possession law, which said anybody that claimed somebody else's land for 10 years could go to court and get clear title. And they claimed every acre of the richest land the world ever known. And everybody act like that's the end. They got it now. They belong to them. But don't you understand? Back to the choir. I love that song. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. But Miss Polly Pierce, when I was 3 or 4 years old, I went to her church, and she died. She was about 95. I mean, many years later. And every time I went to her church, she started off the service with the same song. Must Jesus bear the cross alone, and all the world go free? No, there's a cross for everyone, and there's a cross for me. The reason you could see them pictures up there, James Meredith, everybody thought they was going to kill me. I did too. But I thought the stupidest thing they ever did was didn't kill me. I mean, because I was still trying to break up that good thing. But the good thing is still in hand, and only the students insulated at Coahoma Junior College can make the changes happen. Mr. President, I'm going to shut my mouth. I'll answer any other questions anybody may have. I had 3 or 4 sheets of paper I wanted to read, but unless I get the opportunity, I'm going to shut my mouth. Because the only thing that I really wanted to get across the future is sitting in this room.
I've never met anybody like James Meredith. There are a lot of intelligent people here in the Pinnacle, extremely intelligent. But I've never met anyone as intelligent as he is. And I think I'm pretty darn intelligent. But the first couple of years, I was determined to get to know this icon. And the initial conversations were so deep until I had to struggle to understand. And you've heard him say, "Don't you understand?" He would continuously say to me, "Don't you understand?" And I'm like, I'm struggling, I'm trying to. But it was a process. Now, the president mentioned that we are both alphas, and there are kappas and sigmas and deltas and AKAs and Phi Beta Sigmas, Sigma Gamma Rho, and I hope I didn't miss anybody. Did I miss the Omegas? I'm sorry. One of my best buddies is Omegas. But I didn't understand. And one of the most important things that I think that we are so fortunate to be blessed with is the fact that he's still alive. He is still alive. When I left Aggie, nobody at Aggie, nobody at Coahoma Junior College, nobody in Clarksdale wanted me to go to Ole Miss. They said that my possibility of becoming a physician would never happen because of the racism. After being at Ole Miss for about 8 weeks, I thought they were right. I called home and I was talking to my mom and I said, I think you need to come get me. And I got a little emotional, and she was very quiet, and I was telling about the isolation. Now, I grew up on this campus. Dr. Martin was my first principal. I went to Sandy Valley Elementary, then Aggie, and then Ole Miss. So this was home, and every time I come back to Clarksdale, I feel some kind of way because I'm coming home. Born in Columbus, but raised in the Delta. There's a book that Mr. Meredith, Dr. Meredith, suggested I read called The Delta Epiphany. Robert F. Kennedy in Mississippi, written by Ellen B. Meacham. She's a professor, doctor of journalism at the University of Mississippi. It's an unbelievable read. And I recommend that every high school student read it and every college student read it. It will blow your mind. When I picked it up and started reading, I had to force myself to put it down. But you don't know the half of it about this part of the world called the Mississippi Delta. You will be forever transformed. The things that Mr. Meredith just mentioned about the responsibility and the talent and the future that sits here, that book will prepare you for your journey, to do your part, to be driven, inspired, to want to do your part, and to feel like if you're not doing your part, there's something wrong with you. Yes, I've been in Philadelphia for 35 years, but I will always be a Mississippian. In order for us to do the things that need to be done in Mississippi and in this country and in this world, requires all of us doing our little part and believing that you have the ability to do that. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. This man is my friend. When I spoke to my mom on that particular evening in tears, and she was quiet, I said, "Are you listening?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "So are you coming tonight? Or are you coming tomorrow?" She said, "I'm not coming at all." And I'm like, did you understand what I just told you that I'm going through? And I think everybody else is right, that I'm going to never become a doctor if I stay at Ole Miss. She said, now if James Meredith, if he did what he did, it had to be guarded 365 out of the year. He went straight through once he got accepted, 24/7. He was guarded to go to the bathroom, guarded to go to class, guarded to go to the cafeteria, couldn't go to any open games, guarded in the library, guarded to walk across the campus, guarded. He was the most guarded man in America, in the world. Not even the president was as guarded as James Meredith. She said if he was able to graduate during those times, I want you to get off the phone and work harder, and you're going to graduate. I said, let me speak to Dad. She said, you're not speaking to nobody. You're going to get off the phone, and you're going to work harder. And the last thing I heard was a click. Now, after that, I had a good cry, but I got up and I studied and I worked harder and graduated in 3.5 years. And I sit here today because of what Dr. Meredith, Mr. Meredith, James Meredith, the baddest man in the history of America. I kept my focus on him. No, I don't want to say that. You said it well enough already. But I love him, and Dr. Towner was determined to get him here for you guys.
All right. Thank you so much. So as we're winding down, again, this is a very informal situation. So Dr. Meredith, and you're very impressive. You don't try to impress. That's one thing that makes you impressive. But many people like me, Dr. Blake and others, were able to go to schools. A lot of times those schools, whether they're Ivy League, wherever the schools were located, there were some initiatives in place that enabled us to at least get in the door, and even after we got in the door, we oftentimes had wraparound service of help. They weren't guards, they were helpers. So that makes me really impressed with you to be able to leave Jackson State on your own and come to Ole Miss and go.
Everybody at Jackson State was mad because I'm going.
That's one of them right there, right? But for you to come into a hostile environment without the support and still make it is a testament to your ability. So I just want to kind of, as we were winding down, so, and you know these numbers, so don't embarrass me. You're far more knowledgeable than I am. But 50 years ago, there were only about 10% of African Americans going to predominantly white schools. Now today, less than 10% of African American kids are going to go, students are going to go to a black school. 102 black schools like Kahoma, 25% of us are in, not Kahoma, 25% of those schools are in financial difficulty. And even now, Dr. Blake is obviously a medical doctor, but there are less applications from black males now going to med school than there were 40 years ago. I just want to hear your perspective on you and others have opened the door for access, but it seems like many times we have not taken advantage of the opportunities that are out there, and maybe some thoughts on that perspective.
Thank you. This is so simple. Most of the people in here are going to say, well, he's talking down to us. The single biggest problem in America today is the down position of public schools. The only people who have to have public schools to move up toward the middle status are black people and poor whites. And the people who running things don't care no more about one than they do the other. And if anybody have watched TV this week, the biggest thing that I've seen was whether or not the state was going to take over this school district or that school district because they were F for 2 years or longer. So now, there's something that made it possible for us old blacks, actually nigger is a better word, but I mean, while us old blacks, and he don't think so, but he old too, to do as well as we did was because the black religious Christian women guided us. And they have been taken completely out of the education process. If we put 2 books in every black home in Mississippi. The Bible and the Children's Dictionary. Every black with children would be able not only to make sure their children passed that 3rd and 4th grade test and that 8th grade test, that they would learn also what's in that children's dictionary. A lot of the people sitting in this room 40, 50 years ago, their parents bought vacuum cleaners that they sold door to door and were a book encyclopedia. Without that, we wouldn't be sitting here looking important. None of us. Because of them Christian women, because if anybody come in there trying to teach and didn't have good moral character, that butt was out of there quicker than you can imagine. But now we don't even care what they do. I'm sorry to be getting all excited. I mean, but now, the Children's Dictionary is the most important, but actually it isn't. Because unless the Bible take a serious place back in the life of black people, we are on a downward moral trend. And we got to raise it up. Thank you.
I also want to thank Dr. Blake as well. He's a bad brother too. This brother is bad. If I were not saved, I would be envious of you, jealous of you, what he's done. Played at the large sum of money at Oklahoma Community College, largest single donor around Oklahoma Community College. And tradition has taken students up to Philadelphia. So brother, you've been doing it. I want to thank you for doing it. You're doing it still. I really just kind of figured here. James Meredith. We're on a real tight schedule, but you're the quarterback. We're going to leave at 11 o'clock, which is momentarily we're going to have dinner. I want to thank these high school students for coming as well. We didn't get to the questions, but that's okay.
Press.
So, Dr. Blake, you have a parting word.
Well, first of all, Dr. Meredith has books with him. For any of those who are interested, he has, just to share with you, now, the very first book that Dr. Meredith published by himself was 3 Years in Mississippi. And it is the
best book ever written about America.
The best book ever written about America, and I agree with that. It's one of the must-reads. Now, one of the things that has been historically done most recently is that the University of Mississippi Press made the decision to republish 3 Years in Mississippi, and he has it here with him, and it's again a must-read. The last book that Dr. Meredith wrote was A Mission from God, and he has that here with him as well. But 3 Years in Mississippi, and A Mission from God, and A Delta Epiphany by Elaine Meacham. I highly recommend that you read those books. You will be changed forever. You know, Dr. Towner mentioned the things that I have done, that I continue to do. One of my mentors is Dr. Martin. I'm an alpha today because of Dr. Martin. And he was my first principal. And when we first moved back to Mississippi, my father was an amazing man. He was all about history and what have you. And I was talking to Dr. Martin, trying to determine where we stayed the first night when we got to Clarksdale, I thought it was at a private home, but it was at one of the most historical black hotels in the country, on Sunflower River, and it's Riverview Hotel, and if I'm correct, it's still operational. Riverside. So after talking to Dr. Martin, I realized where we stayed our very first night in Clarksdale was the Riverside Hotel. It made me feel real special. I'm so happy to be a Mississippian. It's going to take Mississippians working from within. It's going to take Mississippians working from without. And with us doing what we can do collectively, we can work to decrease the brain drain from the state of Mississippi. And that's part of my mission, simply put, part of my mission. And someday I will be coming home.
All right, thank you. Last final word, again, thank you everyone for coming. 2010, March 2010, I met you in the gallery of the state capitol. I had to say a prayer that day for the Senate. I was in so much awe of you. I never shall forget parting words you said to me, I'm going to leave with these students. And I was just admiring you. You were very dismissive of my admiration of you. You said, well, it's in you too. You see you too. So I want to let these students know, you see the greatness as deposited in Dr. Meredith, it is in you too. So you can do great things if you provide others and can provide the great heart. Now, final word from this amazing choir, the best choir in the land. Y'all give them a hand. Hold up the Community College Choir, Mr. Howard and Mr. Jamiro Potter. Y'all give them another hand.
This song simply says, take it to the Lord in prayer.
What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege it is to carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? Our precious Savior, He is still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Some things we have not because we ask not. When we have a friend who's there, when we're weak and heavy laden, covered with the load of care. discouraged when we take it to the Lord in prayer. Some things we have not because we ask not. When we have a friend who cares, oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. Oh, what peace we often. Oh, what needless pain. Oh, what needless pain. Oh, what needless pain we bear. We shall never be discouraged when we take it to the Lord in prayer. Take it to the Lord in prayer.
Take a bow now. All right, thank you so much. One party word from Dr. Blake.
Dr. Town, I want to thank you for hosting this event for Dr. Meredith and to give these young people an opportunity to see in the flesh an icon. When Dr. Meredith did what he did at the University of Mississippi, it didn't just change Mississippi, it changed the country. It changed the world. Before he integrated the University of Mississippi, Penn, Harvard, Yale, University of Chicago, NYU, what have you, they would accept an African American once a year, every other year. Most didn't graduate. But after the University of Mississippi accepted the first African American in the history of the institution that was established in 1848, that was determined to never allow someone who looks like me or us to sit in their ivy halls. After that occurred, every other university in the country threw their doors wide open and said, we have got to do better in Mississippi. Dr. Connor mentioned the fact that there's a significant number of African Americans that are attending predominantly white institutions today. It is what it is. But it's important for us to ensure that institutions such as CCC remain in existence. And that's one of the reasons why I do what I do. I cannot leave here without identifying that in order to is my father's younger sister, Mrs. Mary Jenkins, and I'm so happy that she was able to come out. She's a retired teacher from Tahoma Agricultural High School, and she was, when my father was paralyzed in 1976, the summer between my graduation and my matriculation at the University of Mississippi, she returned to Clarksdale to help stabilize her family during the most difficult and traumatic time in my life. So I thank God for it. Dr. Meredith, you want to say anything for you?
Thank you. All right. Dr. Meredith will have books over here next to his wife for signing, and you'll be able to take pictures as well. The choir has given us the benediction in their song, and so we want to thank again these high schools for coming. You are dismissed. God bless you.